TYFU.
What is the difference between labored and belabored?
I don't really know, but I think that's something that we should
Belabored.
have a whole podcast
Belaboring.
about. Are we recording already? Oh. You can start with that.
Belaboring. Our topic
right.
today, no.
That's not what we're here to talk about. What we're
Surprisingly,
here to
no.
We're here to talk about business.
Business, because
is
we're
a
a business podcast. Ooh.
And we have been business podcasting for a year now. Congratulations. Yeah. Well, a year tomorrow, right?
A year
Technically.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, if you're listening to this on drop day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So 1 year.
How's it feel?
I feel like a celebrity. A podcaster, if you will. Mm-hmm. I mean, an influencer, as they say.
Yeah.
How about you, Beth?
I'm pleased to still be at this. I was a little skeptical in the beginning that we would.
Yes, we could hearken back to when we could probably dig up the sound clip somewhere of Beth informing us that if we didn't hit 5,000 downloads by a year or something like that, I think it was a year. Mm-hmm. Then she was out.
Way ahead of that. So I had to renew my lease on this podcast earlier than I expected because we did hit the target, and here we are. And as long as you guys keep liking and sharing and subscribing, then I think I'm stuck with this gig for a while.
I think you are.
Yeah.
I think this is this has some longevity.
Mm-hmm. Let's knock on some wood, though.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What other business? The other business is to thank everybody who's been writing in lately and sending us messages of support and encouragement and telling us what they like about the podcast and
telling us what they don't like about their customers.
Those are our favorite stories.
We love it.
Suggesting show ideas. We have so many show ideas suggested by the customers to work around to in this season or the next or the next.
Or the next one and the next one. Yeah, and I think so much of the feedback that we get about this podcast through the last year has been that people can relate and feel less alone. And I know I think I can speak for you, Beth, when I say that it makes us feel less alone also when you guys write in and share your stories and can relate to what we're going through. So it's a nice little family we got here.
Yeah, if you're someone who feels islanded in your business, which small business owners so often do, because sometimes their friends don't relate or their spouses even don't relate or their wider family doesn't relate.
And their cats won't talk back to them.
I know.
Then listen in and tell if you know somebody like that, then tune in. Share TYFU pod. And thank you for supporting us for a whole year.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be with you.
Wow,
Marilla.
Seems romantic.
I was talking to our listeners, but I also meant you.
But you were looking at me.
And Kelly Walker, too. It's been a pleasure to be with you, Kelly.
He's looking at us with doe eyes. All right. Well, cheers to the next year.
Okay. Your regularly scheduled episode is about to begin.
Buckle up
with an
Buttercup
envelope ripping.
That's right.
Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Marilla has ripped the envelope, and therefore Marilla will announce this week's topic.
Thou shalt announce the topic. The topic this week is pricing. Mm-hmm. Just boring old pricing.
You'd think it would be boring. But yet there's so much to say on this.
Yeah, I wonder if people listening, when you hear pricing, do you just go, womp, womp, or you're like, oh, I've been waiting for this one? Because I kind of felt like I've been waiting for this one.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that can get me ranting faster than the topic of what something costs and why.
Right. And like so many of our topics, there's a lot of different ways to approach it. And I'm not quite sure where we should stick our toes into this. But I'm going to I'm going to bring something up with you.
Okay.
I feel like it's important to talk about this reel you did for Marilla's Mindful Supplies a few weeks ago.
Okay.
I mean, listeners might have to scroll deep for it on your store
We're
feed.
giving you homework.
But you did a video about how your spice prices compare to Wegmans spice prices. And I believe that you were inspired to do this video because you were getting some feedback from customers on how much more expensive your spices are compared to Wegmans spices. And I believe that triggered you. I believe it triggered you into real mode.
Into real mode. And if you know
REEL.
anything about us, when we go into real mode, it's serious. Yes, it triggered me into real mode. It wasn't particularly spices, but I had been getting a lot of feedback this year about my prices in general, which is a very sensitive topic for me because I am a little obsessive about my pricing strategy and what goes into that. I think many small business owners could relate to that.
I hope.
So I have just been getting little bits of feedback about how everything's so expensive these days, which, yes, in some senses, but at my store, the spices are not expensive. So I kind of got sick of hearing it because I know that there are things in my store that are way cheaper than your big box options. And so I trucked my little butt to my local supermarket and looked at the cheapest spices I could get. And I literally shocked myself because
Because you hadn't done any out in the
hadn't
field
done
research
that.
lately.
Yeah. So I went out in the field undercover with my,
You didn't wear your
disguise.
work uniform.
No, I didn't have my sweats on. I wore a nice dress. No one recognized me. And I got my camera out and I filmed all these like price tags of all these spices. And then I went back and I weighed up the exact same amount at my store and I knocked my own socks off because of how much cheaper my prices were. And the emotional roller coaster that whole experience was internally for me, I don't think I really dove. I don't think I really dove.
Dreamt. I never dreamt.
I never
dreamed how much cheaper my... Okay, go ahead.
I never
Sorry.
dreamt. I couldn't fathom what the experience would be for me because it was frustration having customers come in and tell me that my prices were expensive, which I feel like we have a thick skin built in for being told that our prices are higher just because things like Walmart and exist. Kelly's gonna.
I love being able to...
I love doing that. Kelly works his magic every time. Because of that, we're used to being told that our prices are higher. But when you work really hard to make sure your prices are lower or find something that's really competitive, it's really frustrating when someone tells you the opposite just because of a false perception. So there was the frustration that spurred me to go undercover into these supermarkets. There was the nervousness because I hadn't done that in a while.
Yeah,
so
you're
I was
what
like,
if
okay,
I really am way
what if
more
I really
expensive?
am
Yeah.
more expensive? And the trepidation that came with that. And then in the end, there was just this high, seeing how much of a deal my store was, how much of a deal the oregano was a high that I don't get to experience very often as a small business owner.
I think there's lots of occasions where small businesses are actually not more expensive, but you cannot undo this perception. You can't.
Right.
You can't. I feel
Right.
it with Michael's quite a bit. right? Because I do custom framing and Michaels does custom framing. And Michaels is waving around its 40% off coupons.
Every day.
Right. Every
As
day.
if they grow on trees.
And as if that actually is going to make them less expensive than me. And there's no way for me to undo this perception unless I get every single one of my customers to price it with me and then price it with Michaels, price it with me and then and oftentimes it's not the exact same options at both stores.
Right.
So even if it is similarly priced, like it's not apples to apples.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right. I mean, quite often you're getting a more personalized experience. How do you quantify that? When you're working with a small business. And so I agree. And that's kind of what spurred me into this moment of like, okay, I'm going to do the homework. I'm going to go and go undercover and figure this out because I know that I'm guilty of that perception too.
Yeah.
I'm guilty.
Like you weren't even sure, and you thought it was very possible that you might be more expensive because they're buying in mass quantity that you could never compete with.
Right. So, I mean, that video has been really helpful, and I hope that people go and look at it, and I hope that they come and get 41 cent oregano from me at some point. But it was a little bit of a morale boost when I needed it in that moment because I'm just always ready to explain why and justify my pricing and go toe to toe with that person who wants to know why it's so much cheaper on. And I don't know about you, Beth, but it's frustrating sometimes as a small business owner to go up against a big box store because their margins are way higher than ours too. And quite often.
But also on the other hand, even if their margins are more narrow than ours, if they're selling 500,000 units of something and they're only making $1 a piece, I've used this exact analogy before, then they make $500,000.
Yeah.
Right? And if I make $10,
right?
And sell $5, I make $50.
Yeah.
It's a very different beast.
Yes, it feels impossible to navigate that perception. I mean, do you have any like real-time examples? Like I sharing about my spices and people coming in, by the way, to just put a dot at the end of this story. People were flabbergasted. They couldn't believe it. People that had been shopping with me for years couldn't believe that my prices were better than the prices on the shelf in the grocery store, which I was so glad to be able to include people into that surprise. But like they didn't even check. They never checked, really. They just decided I was more expensive and then just figured they would be a martyr and shop with me anyway, which I appreciate. But they're not even doing the homework.
It's interesting, but the reason that they're not doing the homework is because the price is not their primary concern. Supporting small business in their community, supporting a sustainable plastic-free business in their community, knowing you personally, personal service, like your customers have decided that that's more important to them than price. Price is secondary for them.
Right.
So,
which is heartwarming.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's extremely
and it's great
heartwarming.
news that, by the way, it's also the low cost option. I mean, it's great news and shout it from the rooftops. Absolutely.
Right.
But I don't think that for most small businesses in whatever category, I don't think low price is what's driving people in this day and age.
I agree 100%. And in fact, I have done a couple of these price comparisons this year since the spice video. There's a couple other areas in the store that you can save, but I always preface them with, I don't really love to do it because I think that being the cheapest option should not be a priority when you're a small business providing a premium product or service or whatever. Right. So I don't really like playing the comparison game because what makes sense to pay my bills might be different for what makes sense to pay your bills. And so while it was a very fun experience to do those videos, I think it's a sticky topic because it's really hard to play the comparison game with prices. And yet we do it all the time.
Right. I've been thinking a lot lately about my position in the market and what I offer that no one else offers, especially in terms of, like, let's use the custom framing because that's a high ticket thing, right? Custom picture framing is expensive, but there's always going to be a cheaper way to frame your pictures than coming to me. You can go to Walmart. You can go to the dollar store. You can go to the Salvation Army.
You could make one yourself.
You could take one off your wall and put something fresh and new in it. There's a million ways for people to save money on picture framing. And I just have to get comfortable with the fact that what you're getting from me is the value of my expertise in terms of conserving your piece, you know, and in terms of presenting your piece, in terms of elevating your art.
Right.
And that is not something that you're going to get from Target. Right. So there's no shade if you want to go to Target.
For sure.
But it's not the same experience. In terms of Michaels, I did once have a customer of mine who worked as a picture framer at Michaels.
At Michaels, a man from the inside.
Yes, I know. He's like my own little mole over at Michaels. And he would bring his framing to me instead of use Michaels. And he would send customers my way. Like, they would be like, so-and-so at Michaels told me I should come here.
Suck on that, Michael.
But whoever you are. But another thing about that is I had a customer one time who she came into me, she got a quote, and let's say the quote was $220 for her piece. And she's like, okay, well, I got to think about it. And I was like, no problem. I know that's an investment. You know, let me know if you have any other questions, and we're here if you need us. So she came in a few weeks later. She's like, well, I took it over to Michael's.
Trucked it over there.
I drove half an hour to bring it to Michael's. I stood at their counter. They said that it was going to be $200. So obviously I had to go with them.
Obviously. You had to go with them.
Obviously you had to go with them.
$20.
Okay. But you drove out there. You drove back. You drove out there again to pick it up. You drove back.
Yeah.
You invested all this time behind a counter with me.
Yes.
You invested this time behind a counter with them. The sales tax went to a different municipality.
Yes.
Right? And that Michael's is not going to donate to your Little League team.
We have, yes,
right? We've
indeed,
covered that
we've
before.
Covered that.
But for $20 less, you decided to go with the big box store. Good luck sleeping at night, lady.
Right.
But okay, it's your call. It's her call. What can I do about that? Except be like, okay.
I guess that's the kind of person you are. No, I think that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like,
we're just stomping
who knows,
all over
like,
you.
if it's even the same frame.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, is it the same glass? Is
Probably
it the same
not.
mat? Is it
Probably
the same
not.
frame?
Probably
is it
not.
the same, like, care and quality with your piece?
No.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so
But
I don't feel like it's a direct comparison.
Obviously, Beth, she had to go with Michael's.
Had to go with Michael's. Okay.
Yeah, obviously. Get over it.
But at the end of the day, what keeps me awake about that story is Michael's was cheaper.
I know. It drives me crazy. You know what gets me? The one that drives me nuts is I will, at certain times of the year, sell chocolate bars. And I will only sell fair trade,
batch, right?
small batch, organic chocolate bars. And these puppies aren't cheap,
right?
Let me tell you. And when someone comes in and they say, oh, $7 for a chocolate bar. Mm-hmm. Yeeks, that's pretty steep. I mean, I like good chocolate, but is it worth it? And I'm like,
no.
Let me tell you a little something about fair trade.
Oh, yes.
You ever hear of child labor? and, cruelty in the workplace.
Did you ever hear of a rainforest?
Yeah. You ever hear of cute little animals that need shelter from the storm? Yeah. And that's one that I lean in on because we're so, yes, you could go and get a Hershey bar for $1.99. Mm-hmm. But you're paying for, when you get the one for $7, you're making sure that the plant that the cocoa came from was okay. The animals that live under it are okay. The people that made it are being fed and paid enough. Like, there's so many little things that go into that price. When you say, well, that I bet it's good, but I'm just going to go get a Hershey bar. You're telling me that you're okay with a certain level of product, and I don't know how you sleep at night.
I don't know.
I'm trying not to judge.
It's not supposed to be shaming to people. It's not supposed to be shaming. We're supposed to be,
Listen, I eat
gracious
Hershey Kisses if they're on the table. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm not judging, but what I'm just trying to say is just that $20 reflects a lot of care and service at Stomping Grounds for your framing. That $7 chocolate bar, I'm not just pocketing $6.
Yeah, I want to talk about pocketing. I'm not
pocketing $6, and you're the sucker that's getting
in your
a cheap chocolate
laughing all
bar.
the way to the bank.
Yeah,
Marilla.
right. I wish I was laughing all the way to the bank.
Well, that reminds me of a story.
All right.
Okay, so I was in my store, as I often am. Mm-hmm. I was helping a framing customer.
As you often are.
As I often am. And another person was shopping the greeting cards, and that person went to the cash register to pay for her greeting cards. At this point in the story, I'm going to admit that I heard this secondhand from Maggie. Okay. Maggie is the person who cashed out the customer with the greeting card.
Roger that.
Maggie told me that the customer said, as she was checking out, that she loves our greeting cards and she'd love to be able to send her friends to Stomping Grounds for greeting cards. But all of our greeting cards are $5, and that's just too much. So she can't send her friends to Stomping Grounds to buy greeting cards. Mm-hmm. Maggie rang her up. The greeting card she purchased was $3.49. So there's that.
So she got a bargain.
Yes.
Yeah, Maggie gave her a deal.
Honestly, our greeting cards start at $2.50, right?
What?
They're small ones.
$2.50.
Then we have a line that's $3.25. Then we have a line that's $3.49, and so on.
It sounds like very thoughtful curating of the greeting cards.
Sounds like I know what I have, right? And how much it costs. So you can tell that I'm getting a little agitated. Because even if it was $5, which it wasn't.
Let the record show.
It was not $5. Let's pretend it was $5.
All right.
Then that card would have cost me between $2.50 and $3.
Right.
Right?
Right, there it is, people.
So let's
That's the truth.
pretend that I had the largest margin on that.
Right.
Let's pretend that I was making $2.50 on that purchase. Mm-hmm. That is paying for what? The mortgage, the electric,
doesn't even buy you a coffee.
bag to put your damn card in. Like, all this costs money. It's not like I'm like, screwed another person out of $2 because I'm this greedy asshole that overprices greeting cards.
Right.
Right? And for this woman to insult Maggie has no say in what the prices are at Stomping Grounds.
Right.
So how dare she complain about the prices to this employee, right?
Right. I would also like to point out We're really ragging on people in this one.
Gosh, we really are.
We're
We really are.
ragging
We're gonna
on
have
them,
to
and I'm
edit
not
some
going to
shit out of this one. We're gonna have to edit some shit.
Nope, I'm not done. I'm leaning
Oh,
in.
you're just warming up.
I'm just warming up.
All right.
I would like
Who's
to
next?
point out. I'm still on this lady.
Okay.
This
me too.
this nameless lady. Like, I'm not going to be pinching my pennies, sending a sympathy card to someone who's lost a loved one. I'm not going to be like, oh, $5. Ugh, I don't know if I like them that much.
That much.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's what it is, but a little bit of me thinks, oh man, yeah, you wouldn't want to spend $5 on a Mother's Day card.
Well, you just said that the cards are nicer too. You said that the cards are nicer, and that's why you'd like to send your friends here. But it's not
doesn't
worth.
make sense.
Right. So why even have this discussion with my employee and make my employee feel guilty or whatever or embarrassed about having to charge her $5?
Yeah.
This is. I mean, I'm going through a transition personally.
Oh. Thank you for sharing that on this podcast.
To change, everyone.
That's right.
I'm going through a transition around apologizing for the prices.
Yes.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately. You know, somebody might easily spend $100 or more on a beautiful flower arrangement.
Right.
That poof is gone in 2 weeks.
That will wilt.
Or
Wilt away.
$100 or more on a nice dinner out that is literally done in 2 hours, you know?
Maybe 8, depending on your
If
digestion.
you have leftovers, right, sure, fine. But if I tell them that this, you know, I'm going to frame their grandparents' wedding photo, it's going to be behind UV protected glass and have acid-free
And
mats,
preserved.
and it's going to be preserved from now until the end of time potentially. I'll be like,
Through generations.
$100? Are you kidding?
Are you crazy, lady?
I'm going to go to Michael's. Right.
As obviously.
Obviously they should. Right.
Obviously they should.
But I just don't like the perception of what things are worth.
Yeah.
It kind of confuses me, and I don't think that I have enough years left in my life to undo perceived values.
Right.
And I think I just want to start personally getting a lot more comfortable with the fact that I'm offering a differentiated product, and it costs more. Period.
Right. Period.
And I got to stop apologizing for it and feeling bad for it.
And that's the tea, sis.
It's easier said than done. Because when somebody's at the framing table and I have to drop a big price on them, I feel cringy about it too.
Oh, don't you,
I
though?
go right into it being like, okay, well, listen, I'm going to give you a big number, but there's a lot of different ways that we can work around this number, right?
Right.
I feel bad.
Right.
Because I know that it's expensive and I know that not everybody can afford it, and I want to make it affordable for everybody. But oftentimes when I'm giving somebody, some stranger across the table, a better deal, I'm taking that away from me, from my kid, from my employees, from anybody else in the community where I could be spending my money. I have less money to spend at your store.
Right.
You know, so I'm really trying to stop apologizing for the pricing.
For what it costs.
Yes.
What it has to cost for what it is.
Yes.
Which I agree wholeheartedly. For me, and this is pretty specific, so I won't dwell on it too long, but for me, there's a little bit of me feeling like my hands are tied because I sell stuff like oats and like sometimes if you dabble in any kind of like market economics, they'll talk about anchoring products, like products that anchor like how expensive things are. So like if milk goes up in price, people think that stuff is really expensive because they just think they use milk as a gauge, the price of milk or eggs. I have a couple of those items in my store, like oatmeal and, I don't know, oatmeal, beans. And sometimes I feel like I can't charge what I should charge because people are just going to be like taking the temperature on those prices because it's like eggs and milk. Like if they know oats should cost this and then they come into my store and if it's more, then I'm automatically more expensive. But maybe it's just that small businesses are more expensive in people's minds and I need to stop thinking about my oats.
Right. Do you remember I had a birthday party?
Yes. And it was one for the ages.
And do you remember I hired some cakes?
Yes.
And do you remember how beautiful they were?
Stunning.
And delicious.
Delightful.
Made to order, made to my specifications.
With unique flavor combinations.
Right.
We're not talking vanilla and chocolate, people. We're talking cherry, dark chocolate cherry.
There was a lemon lavender option.
There was a mint julep or something
Yes,
like
there was
that?
a margarita cake
Oh
or
my
something
God.
like that. I don't know.
Really, really unique.
Right.
To Beth. You think Beth, you think margarita cake.
Anyways, I'm going to tell you that those cakes were better quality, custom made, fresh, and way less expensive than a cake from Wegmans.
You heard it here first.
Right. And I'm thinking
what you're thinking.
I'm thinking for maybe later.
Yeah, we
Okay.
might have something to talk about.
But I would encourage that cake maker to raise her prices. And I have not talked to her about her pricing structure, so shout out. Hey there, Erin. But I think that she should charge more.
It's such a good experience.
And also the perceived value in my head for her cakes is higher than the perceived value I have in my head for a Wegmans cake.
Right.
So why doesn't she just answer that
Bump it up.
perceived value and embrace it?
I agree. I was just having this conversation. Maybe we're the problem, Beth. No, I recently had this conversation with a dear friend about her products. And I said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think you should raise your prices. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, but I think you should because it's valuable and people love these. And I think that you are scrimping to make this price as fair as possible, but I bet you're worth an extra $1. Mm-hmm. And when you put it in that perspective, it's like, oh yeah, I probably am worth an extra $1.
Mm-hmm. When I bought these cakes, I did not buy them. I did not go to this woman because I expected to find the cheapest option through her.
Right.
I was the customer who was brought in for different reasons. I wanted to have interesting, beautiful.
You mean you
fresh
weren't price comparing
not
cakes around town?
No, I was not. Right?
Surprising.
I wanted to go to what I thought was the best and thought would be worth more money.
Yes.
So I don't think that most small businesses are never, ever going to be the least expensive option across the board.
Right.
That you happen to have a really competitive price on your spices.
My oregano.
Right.
My darling oregano.
I mean, we might be cheaper here and there on this or that, but
across the board, on average, I think it is true. The perception is true that we are the more expensive option.
But for a reason.
So,
yeah, I want small businesses to embrace that and feel more comfortable with it.
We want you to raise your prices. No. Do what you need to do.
We want you to have a price that makes sense and stop apologizing for it. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, and pays your bills and makes you feel like you're valued. Because sometimes when I don't price things well, when I price them too lean, I sell it and it's exciting. And then I realize that I didn't really price it in a way that makes me feel valued. I feel like I've been taken advantage of. And who did that? Me, to myself, my boss. So I never want anyone to feel like that in their business. So I'm saying charge what you need to charge. While we've been ranting about these customers that complain, I just would like to take a moment to talk about, it made me, when you said you get nervous when you're delivering a big total to somebody, that'll be $8,000, madam. Like that would make
it's not $8,000, everyone.
Stop apologizing, Beth.
It's $8,500.
That when I get so nervous when I have a really big total to deliver to someone. And I don't know why I feel like I have to say it out loud. They can see it in front of them, but there's something about shopkeeping where you're like, that'll be
da-di-da-di-da-di-da. Cash or charge?
Yeah. I get sweaty about it. Even though this is the person who picked out all these things and all my prices are clearly marked, I just get so nervous saying that price out loud or that total out loud sometimes. And isn't it just the most euphoric experience when someone goes, "Oh, it's only that much? That's great."
Oh,
and
I
then
know.
they just,
I know.
let's give Kelly Walker a little round of applause here, because Kelly Walker is one of those people that I can't recall. One time, I don't remember the actual phrase, Kelly, but you said something like, "It would be a bargain at double the price." It was something like that. And my little heart just fluttered because I don't remember what you were buying, but it was something that I felt like was a treat, and the total was high. And to have someone say that to me in that moment was the most wonderful thing. And those people are angels sent from above.
Because I feel so uncomfortable with the cost of framing, sometimes I'll like warn people like, okay, well, I've got to deliver some very rough news. Are we all sitting down? Let's inhale and exhale.
It's fine.
Right. Right. I'm like, I just want you to know, like, there's things we can do to manipulate this if it's an uncomfortable number for you.
Like you're trying to help them like
say
work,
no already.
Yeah. And also try to like get around the man, which is you. Like we're gonna figure this out, guys. Don't worry.
Let me talk to my manager, which is me. Okay. But anyways, sometimes I'll drop a number and they'll be like, "Oh, is that all? I thought it was going to be double that."
Yeah.
You know, or I have people in fact, I was talking to Ellie at Microclimate about this, because I'll have people come from a bigger city who are used to paying bigger prices.
Right.
And who frame with me specifically because I'm pricing for Geneva, New York.
Right.
And Ellie says she feels the same thing, like something that's kind of higher end on her menu.
Yeah.
If somebody's used to buying that drink in Manhattan.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, jinx.
They come in, and Ellie's item that she takes some flack about on the price from locals.
Yeah.
Somebody from out of town will be like, "Oh, wow, is that all?"
That's a bargain.
Yeah, of course. You know, there's labor prices are higher in New York, or rent prices are higher in New York. There's
charge
reasons.
what you need to charge.
There's reasons behind these numbers.
Right.
But
that is just a breath of fresh air. I recently had someone come in our Rochester store, and she did a bunch of shopping, and like the pile's getting bigger, and me and the manager there, Amanda, we're getting nervous because we can see the numbers adding up in our head, and we're like, okay, yeah. And then sometimes with bulk stuff, people won't really realize how much something weighs, and they'll like load up on something, and that's something that I get nervous about. So she loaded up on all this really expensive, like cosmetic refill stuff, like face cream, like a bucket of face cream.
yes,
Under eye cream, something like that.
tiny little container.
Usually when you buy it at the mall, it's a tiny little, it's like a tablespoon of product. I'm not even joking. You get like a tablespoon of product, but when you come into my store, it's very easy to get a whole shovel full of product.
Yes.
So she gets up. I'm like prepping myself to give the speech about, okay, I'm going to ring up this bulk stuff. And if it's more than you expected, we can always put some back. And I start going into the spiel, and she stops me. She goes, "Stop. I don't care what it costs."
Wow. Come again.
What? Which on one hand was maybe a little obnoxious, but I loved it. I was like, oh my God.
Price really isn't an issue, huh?
Literally. Okay. I don't even know what that's like.
I know. And like, let's bring this up though. It's because you and me don't have big checks coming to us at the end of every week, right?
That's true.
We are not like, making a lot of money compared
Right.
to some people.
Right.
So we are bargain hunters ourselves. Like we're scrappers and
true.
bargain hunters.
And we are Hershey Kiss eaters.
Speak for yourself, Marilla. Okay.
Okay, actually, I don't really like Hershey chocolate, but I will eat them if they're in front of me.
Oh, right. Right.
Anyway,
Well,
off
we don't
topic.
have to like this is
I don't have to justify it.
I'm just saying you and I are not like independently wealthy. We're
Right.
looking for ways to save money in our own lives. And I think that's why we're very sensitive to what other people might be feeling economically.
Right.
You know?
And sympathetic. And so
And
yes.
also we're always on our customers' team. So
Right.
if
So we're trying to outsmart the boss and get him a bargain. So yes, when this woman who clearly was well off and did not have to worry about
her face cream.
her face cream said that to me, it was mixed emotions because I was on one hand thinking, well, must be nice. But on the other hand, it was such a relief
Yes.
to be able to ring up this really big pile of goodies and just not have to be sweating the whole time, dreading that number.
and that conversation that you have with so many
And that
people
conversation.
who accuse you of
Oh.
falsely marking things up or trying to pay your rent or
Yeah.
trying to make your car payment like
Yeah, it was like she gave me permission to just enjoy a really good boost that day, like a really good boost in sales. And her saying, that's a great price, or I'm not even worried about it. I just love this store. I love what's in it. It gave me permission to also love the store and what she was getting
Sure.
and
you
what I
both
was
got to
doing.
enjoy
We
her
both got to
experience.
enjoy that. Yeah. So yeah, bless the people who tell us that our prices are fair and good,
or that they don't even
or
care.
that they don't even care. I can't say how nice that is. Doesn't
Yeah.
happen all the time, but it is
No.
nice when it does.
One thing that is, I suppose, a fair complaint that happens in my store, because in addition to the framing, I sell books. And when I sell books in my store, newly published books, I sell used books, and they start at $1, by the way.
What a bargain. I think you even have some free out
I
there
do
somewhere.
actually.
Yeah. Starts at free. Free 99.
A quick tangent. My grandfather had a garden.
This is a tangent.
Right. He would grow more vegetables than he could possibly eat.
Okay.
So he would put free vegetables out on a stand,
Okay.
but they wouldn't move because people were so sus.
Oh
Of
my
free
God.
food.
Yes.
So then he
Yes.
started charging a nickel
Right.
per whatever.
Yes.
A nickel per pumpkin, a nickel per zucchini.
Yes.
And then the produce started moving because people are mistrustful of things that are
The
some things that are
psychological.
priced too low, right?
Yes, it's like the psychological part of pricing is so fascinating
Yes.
because if I try to give someone something for free, they're like, well, what's wrong with it?
Yes, exactly.
But if I say, hey, this is $1 today only, they'll
Right.
be like, I'll take 7
it,
of
yeah.
them.
Exactly. So this is why I started having the dollar section.
Yeah.
Because the dollar section actually performs better than
The free
me
books.
putting a box out for free. Isn't that strange?
And yet people say you charge too much.
I know.
It's a cold world out there.
Okay, but let's back from the tangent.
Back from the tangent.
I sell newly published books, and when I sell newly published books, I sell them at cover price.
Cover price, right.
Why?
Why,
When
Beth?
the same
Why,
book
Beth?
could be actually found for much, much less on. It is because my wholesale price is often more than the price on, right?
Yes.
So I could buy it cheaper on than I could from the publisher.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
that is mind-boggling. And then you want to know why I don't buy it from instead of direct from the publisher, and it's because I want the publisher to stay in business, right?
Right. So yeah, it's really tricky to be a small shop owner and navigate these players that aren't even playing by the same rules as we are. And we're still trying to make sure our prices are competitive and fair as they possibly can be, because it's really not just because they have more money that they're able to give lower prices. It's because maybe it is, I guess, in a grand scheme.
Money equals heft. It's heft in the marketplace.
It's because they can strong arm and pay whatever price they want.
Abusively.
Maybe this is the episode where we go to jail. There's gonna be a hit put on us. But there, we said it. We outed them.
We should have a different noise for Walmart, maybe.
A whole catalog.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, there have to be like a glossary
I was gonna
on
say,
the website.
That sounds like a lot of homework, but we might just go there. We'll see what happens.
All right. So we did do a lot of ragging this episode.
I blacked out. I don't remember that.
We did do a lot of criticizing.
Criticizing. I was trying to think of something flowery. I couldn't get there.
We complained a lot.
Yeah, we bitched.
Well, I again want to just articulate that we personally don't blame people for being price conscious.
Oh, no.
Right.
Oh, no.
Right.
We personally want you to know that we're on your team.
Right.
I think that's something is I know that stuff is expensive and life is expensive sometimes, and I am always on your team as far as my pricing strategies. I have to be also on my team.
Right.
But there is something in me that's oh, forget about me. I want you to get your,
that's the customer
I want
service
you to get
in
your
you
oats.
and me.
Yeah.
So I think because we're so sensitive about pricing and we price so carefully and thoughtfully, when someone accuses us of extorting them on the price of oregano or a greeting card, it's very triggering.
It
right?
hurts.
It hurts.
It hurts.
It hurts. And I feel like it's one of the more insulting things that can happen from a customer who may not realize how deeply painful it is.
Right. And I try not to take it personally, but it feels
pretty personal.
It feels personal with the hours and agonizing that goes into it.
Because it's a suggestion that you're not worth it. Your store is not worth it. Your product isn't worth it.
Yeah.
And you're just out to gouge people.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
I've gone through a shift in criticizing prices because now being a business owner, I realize that I don't really care what it costs if it's worth. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to stop comparing prices and just say, is this worth it to me? And sometimes I do that. I think that, sure, I could go to Michael's for my next framing project. But like we talked about with the lady who obviously had to go there, Michael's is 30 minutes away from me. I'm pretty busy these days. It is worth it to me. Not even talking about the phenomenal glass that you put in your frames. It's worth it to me to just have the convenience of someone who knows how to frame well, take care of that piece for me. So if I have to save up and wait to get that picture framed until next year, maybe I will.
When you have $20 more next year.
Maybe I'll have $20 more next year. But I don't know. I'm just trying to reevaluate what something is worth and what it would take, what it would really cost me to make it happen. What convenience is worth to me. I don't know.
I think an easy comparison on this is a hamburger from McDonald's versus a hamburger from a high-end restaurant. You know what I mean? You can say they're both hamburgers and you'd never pay $15 or $20 for a hamburger when you can buy a hamburger at McDonald's for what? I don't know what they even cost. Let's say $1.
Let's say
$3. Right. I don't know. I haven't gotten one lately. But they're not. It's not the same. Just because you call them both hamburgers doesn't mean that the same amount of care and consideration has gone into both,
Right. And if I have a hard time
Is
understanding
the
why,
beef even the same?
right. If I have a hard time understanding why they're not the same, then I say, okay, well, this is local beef. I'm going to go get a pound of ground beef from a local butcher, and I write down that price, and then I write down the price of the bread, or what it would cost me to make the bread, and then the lettuce, or what it would cost me to grow the lettuce. Like, you name it, go down the list.
That many hours of your time as well.
And then you have to factor in your time, and by the end of that list, I have a $75 burger that I've just made for myself. So that's a game that I've been playing lately that has helped me say things like, that's a bargain at double the price. Because it really, when you start shifting your thinking, when I start shifting my thinking, it helps me to recalibrate what something is worth, and then in turn helps me to price things in my own business what they're worth, and my own time what it's worth.
It reminds me of, like, say it was, somebody sees a Jackson Pollock painting, whatever. Like, well, I can make that myself. Looks like a kindergartner made that. Right? You want to be like, well, could you though? Like, maybe that's a bad example, because maybe we all could make Jackson Pollock. I don't know. But you get what I'm saying. Like,
there's
a lot more to it than if you think you could make it the same yourself.
Right.
But could you really?
Yeah.
Do you have the studio?
Yeah.
Do you have the paints?
Again, who knows what we'll keep in this episode, but this makes me think of, I have an actual real-time example of this in my store right now. When I opened 5 years ago, we had these, I had them in my cart. I was ready to stock them. They were these terry cloth, made in the USA bags that you keep your lettuce and greens in, that keeps them fresh. They're crisper bags. And I looked at these. I think it's a great idea. Farmers market season is fun around here. I thought it was a great idea. But then I thought, I could make this. Like, I could take a towel and I could make this with terry cloth, or I could get some terry cloth and make these. I just feel like I don't need to buy these, blah, blah, blah. I never got them in my store for the first 5 years. So when I opened up Rochester 5 years later, do you think I had made myself a veggie crisper bag? No. So I started stocking veggie crisper bags from this lovely, sweet company that makes them. That's their job, and they do a great job at it. And now every time when somebody comes up and asks me, have you tried this? Do you think this is worth it? I say, yeah, because you know what? I could make that. I could make it. You could make it. But am I going to? No. I'm going to spend $20 and get myself an extra large veggie crisper bag, and then it's done. Then you have it. And the convenience, it is so worth $20.
Yes.
To me. To not have to go home, cut out the terry cloth, pull out my sewing machine or buy one and make myself one misshapen crisper bag. I just, you got to know what you want to do and what you like to do. But again, that comes down to what's it worth to you.
Well, right. And maybe if you're a retired person, you have time to drive, an extra 2 hours to Michael's to drop it off and pick it up and drop it off and pick it up.
And that's why no shame.
Right.
That's why no shame.
Maybe you're a seamstress and you have the time and the skill to make a veggie crisper bag.
Exactly.
Right? But just recognize that there's some reasons why things are priced how they're priced, and sometimes it's worth it to spend a little bit more.
And it's always worth it at Beth's shop and my shop.
Right.
5 stars to Kitchen Witches
in Geneva.
Kitchen Witches in Geneva, New York. A mother-daughter duo.
Yes, Erin and Tova.
Yes.
I ordered some cakes.
And they were phenomenal. I ate them. I didn't order them, but I ate them.
Yeah, because they were fresh and they were clever and they were pretty.
Oh,
they were delivered to my house.
Yeah.
The morning of my party.
Delivered to your house? You didn't have to drive
I didn't have to go anywhere.
Oh my God.
They came to me. The brunch started at 10. The cakes came at like 9:30. They couldn't have been more like
fresh.
Right.
And exciting.
And I was offered a cake plate.
A cake plate?
Cake plates, but I happen to be a person who has cake plates.
Oh.
So
I see.
I only had to borrow one.
Nice.
Which I then broke.
Oh my God.
Right. And that's a separate story, though.
I'm sorry, Erin.
Erin did not give me a hard time about that. She did not charge me more. So I'd like to give her a 5-star review just for that understanding, but also for the cakes themselves.
Thank you for understanding.
I got scones from Erin.
Oh, yes.
I got chocolate yogurt bread. All this was for the birthday
party. Yeah, the brunch.
Mm-hmm. And everything was delicious. And everything was
on time.
Very affordable.
And it looked beautiful. Beautiful. I'm just going to say right now, I'm not a cake person. I'm not really, I don't eat cake that much. I'm more of a donut kind of girly. But I had like 2 slices of cake just because it was so goddamn aesthetic. I wanted a slice of cake on my plate to nibble, and I wanted both of them. So
actually, Marilla, we had cake after too.
Yeah.
Do you remember, like,
her cake fueled one of these podcasts? Right. I don't remember which one, here. But leftover cake was enjoyed during a recording. So yes.
And a quick correction. I called it a margarita cake. It was a mojito cake.
You're right.
Right. Mojito
cake.
It's possible that Erin also makes a margarita cake.
Ask her. I bet she'd work it. I bet she would.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of service you can expect from the kitchen witches.
We chat about the biz. It is the way it is. Thank you for understanding.
We sincerely thank you for understanding. Please visit us at tyfupod.com to learn more about the show, share prompt ideas, or tell us about your own small business experiences. We may include your story in a future episode. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at tyfupod or at tyfupod.com. Our theme music was composed by Marilla Gonzalez. The show is produced by Kelly Walker. Too bad for Kelly Walker. Well, let me burst that bubble immediately.
Go right ahead.
Let me immediately burst that bubble.